Well, it's time for another Rogers Capital Market commentary where we attempt to be the antidote to water cooler wisdom. Well, we had an ever so slightly positive April, up about 1.4%. That puts us through the first 4 months of the year at plus 9 for the year on the equity markets. And with about 80% of the S&P 500 having reported their earnings for the first quarter, we're looking at a year-over-year consensus decline of about 2.3% on earnings, which is to be expected given what's happening with interest rates and this economic slowdown. And honestly is even on an upward trend from what we've seen and expected. Now, this is the time of year you hear an old adage, sell in May and go away. Did a video on this a year ago. In fact, I'd encourage you to go back and re-watch that. But the wisdom goes something like this. You can't make any money in the summer anyway. The big boys, the Wall Streeters, sell out and put their money in cash or take profits and run things down and go to the Hamptons, and they enjoy themselves, and then they come back in the fall. And then all the money is made from November through April anyway. Now, while that part of it is true, you make more money historically from November around to April, about 7% on average. The insinuation that you can't make any money from May through October, just not accurate. The average growth on those months over the summer, that 6-month time frame, is still 2% growth. So not to mention the second thing going on there is, these adages, they're not always true. In fact, in the last 5 years, last year you were flat. The year before that, you were flat in May. The year before that, you were up big. That was the rebound from the pandemic. The year before that, you were down, so it was right then. The year before that, you were up big. So in the last 5 years, sell in May, go away, was right one time. And I'd submit to you that this year, this go around, things are probably going to be a little bit more driven by the Fed, whether they can back off on rates, something we'll talk about a little bit more here momentarily. Now, something else in the news has been this debt ceiling conversation. And of course, it's big headlines and, drama. This is not the first time this has occurred. It happens every couple of years, honestly. Seems like it happens every year, but it's legitimate in the sense that it gets serious if our country doesn't raise that debt limit so that they can continue to pay their bills. When you start defaulting on the debt that you owe the world and banking institutions, things can get serious. But reality is, it's usually more drama than actual carnage because politicians get together and raise the debt limit. Nobody wants that to occur. Usually it's a non-event, maybe a little blip of a stock market drop. The most serious was probably in 2011, that summer, July of 2011. We got within 2 days of it actually defaulting. You may remember stories about national parks being closed and lots of different federal agencies, people furloughed, and it got a little close to crazy then. You may also remember the debt rating being cut. S&P lowered the U.S. debt rating, which was AAA forever, cutting that to AA+, where we still stand today. Market got pretty choppy. In fact, there was a 16% drop over the coming weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, but we rallied that back to where we were originally in just a few short months. By January, you were all the way back. More news, you may see headlines on the banking front. Regulators took possession of First Republic Bank last month. It's the second largest bank failure in U.S. history, with, I guess, second only to Washington Mutual Bank, which was a 2008 bank failure. And of course, this conversation lends itself to the advertisement, the scare tactics of, you should be in gold anyway. Get your money out of the banks. It's nothing but a Ponzi scheme. Just get your money out. It's ridiculous. It's a shell game. Get your money out. Put it in gold, because everybody knows gold is real money anyway. Or Bitcoin, which is honestly hilarious, given it was just a couple of months ago we were talking about Sam Bankman-Fried and one of the cryptocurrencies that he did business in, going completely to zero. But Bitcoin is the answer. Cryptocurrencies are the answer instead of banks. When the reality, of course, is that your money in the banks, provided you're following FDIC deposit guarantee rules, $250 per titling account, you've got no risk, okay? But nonetheless, another opportunity for headlines and scare tactics. Now, we've talked a lot about inflation over the last year. The PCE, the personal consumption expenditure, we're still seeing a little bit of a dichotomy between goods inflation and services inflation. Goods inflation, the things we can buy, hard, concrete things, inflation on those up 1.6%, while services prices are up 5.5% over that same time frame. Now, both of those growth rates are declining. Some good news, food inflation is actually easing as well, which releases pressure on, of course, the American household budget. And annualized inflation overall has actually slowed to 4.2%. The bottom line is that this little mini banking crisis, the slowdown in business market or business activity, deteriorating or decelerating inflation, signs of softer job market, hopefully those things will force the Fed to consider ending these rate hikes and maybe even pause or cut later this year. The U.S. economy as a whole continues to trudge through. Our plow horse keeps trudging, 1.1% year-over-year growth, and third consecutive downshift in quarterly growth, but equity declines don't always line up with recessions. In fact, markets quarter over quarter in 1990 and in 1991 didn't necessarily line up when the economy was in recession. Consumers, we've talked about the health of the consumer. Consumers have started getting pessimistic. Started the year real strong, but increasingly pessimistic. Spending has softened in recent months. Consumers getting cautious. So the question becomes, can the Fed transition to a pause in rates and then perhaps an outright cut in rates later this year if the economy continues this slide, continues to deteriorate? That's the question. And if the Fed can do that, markets are going to love it. Well, that's it for this time. Summer's right around the corner. Hope you have a good graduation season. We got a senior in our house, so of course that's going to be fun. We'll see you in June. 100 degrees will be here before we know it.